Hey, thanks for joining us on the Political Deep Dive this evening. Tonight we're going to be talking about, we're going to be doing the CNN News Quiz for the week. Then we'll be doing, talking about Vladimir Putin exclaiming, "You sunk my battleship." Then we'll talk about Elon for buying Twitter, and Coachella, and several other topics. So join us. Jenn Moore is our guest tonight. She'll be talking about the new Keystone Party in Pennsylvania, and we look forward to talking to her. We'll see you here in a couple minutes. Hey, good evening. Thank you for joining us on the Political Deep Dive. I'm Dave Valente. This week we'll be joined by Jennifer Moore. And we actually just had Dan join us, but let me get my show notes up here. Jennifer Moore is the Upper Providence Township Auditor and former chair of the Libertarian Party of Pennsylvania. Following her tenure as chair, and despite, or perhaps due to, staggering electoral and fundraising successes during her term, she and many Libertarian activists were harassed mercilessly during that term. Following her term as chair, she left the Libertarian Party and has been working with top Pennsylvania liberty activists to form a new party called the Keystone Party. And that was launched recently and is already setting its sights on being the party to drive liberty in Pennsylvania. Jennifer Moore, thank you for joining us tonight. How are you doing?
Hi, thanks for having me again. I feel like I'm on your podcast all the time, but
I
it's
know,
great.
and you're always welcome. So I mean, that's
Well,
the
thank
cool.
you.
And
This is the first time I've ever done one from my easy chair in my living room, so we'll see how this goes. My lighting's not any better, but
don't fall asleep. I mean, that's
no, that's I did that all afternoon. And my sister came over for Easter brunch, and I had like one mimosa, and then we went for a walk, and I was just like out cold all afternoon.
Yeah,
that was that.
Also joining us tonight, former executive director of the Libertarian Party and current executive director of People for Liberty.
What's up, everybody? Hey, Jen. Hey, Dave. I am excited for tonight's show.
Yeah.
Because we talked about this yesterday. One of the things that I need to know about the Keystone Party is, will you be referring to the law enforcement as the Keystone Cops?
We talked about that when we chose the name. And I mean, naturally, of course, I use that term all the time anyway. But in forming a new party, I will tell you the name was the most difficult part. We
Right.
changed it at least 4 times. I mean, we wanted something that didn't have any kind of negative association. And there is a Keystone Party in Manitoba, and they are kind of far right, but we figured it was far enough away. We needed something that wasn't being actively used. And Keystone actually came to us through a donor who really liked it. And we were like, we don't hate it. And at this point, we're all sick to death about talking about the name.
Right. That's
And so, I mean, that really was, I mean, choosing the name was the most brutal part. We had to keep going back to it. And we were worried that it would be too PA centric if we wanted to bring this national. But, I mean, the Keystone is, kind of the bedrock that, holds up the arch. And, when we talked to people out of state and had focus groups about it, they liked it too. So, in the end, that was, kind of just what we settled on. It fit right. The right people liked it. So.
And for people who don't know, Pennsylvania is the Keystone State.
Yeah.
Right. Correct.
So,
and, as the Keystone state goes, the rest of the country usually follows. So
tell us a little bit about the formation of the Keystone Party. Why did you? I mean, you went over the why you chose the name Keystone, but do you plan on keeping it just Pennsylvania centric, or are you really planning on a national movement?
No, we already have other states that are looking at signing on and forming their own Keystone parties. We went live with this on April 4th. So that was actually my 40th birthday. So it was a fabulous birthday present to me. To go live with Keystone. But yeah, it's only been a couple weeks, and we're just really hitting the ground sprinting. So the reason for it, I mean, personally, I had a job around 10 years ago where I was really professionally frustrated, right? Like, I mean, it was not the best place for me to work. I was underemployed, but at that time I was having children, and, I needed FMLA, and, so I didn't want to leave right away. I ended up stepping down to part-time, but I was there through the Affordable Care Act. For those of you who don't know, I work in healthcare finance as my day job. So, my boss at the time just kept telling me that, Jen, you're going to end up where you're supposed to be. And, sometimes you're where you are for a reason. And I really was in that job where I was very frustrated for a reason. It was the right time in my life. And I needed to, take a step back to, start my family. And I kind of look at what's going on now as the same thing. I left a volunteer job where I was very, very frustrated. It was not the right culture for me. It wasn't a great fit. And I learned a lot. I learned a lot about myself. I learned how to, chair a hostile meeting for sure. I learned about, where I am policy-wise. I learned about ballot access. And at the end of the day, I took a look at it and said, this is not a good cultural fit for me. I mean, there are just, things here that make it not the best organization for me to be a part of. And so that was why I personally was stepping away. But then everything happened at our convention. And Joe Slosky and Nicole Schultz had built this huge campaign, right? Like, they've been campaigning for a year and a half. All the media outlets already know about them. They have all these volunteers. And it was just such a huge letdown for everybody. Like, where do we go now? And they both announced that they were going to run independent. So we started looking at what's the best way to get them on the ballot, because that's what I'm really good at, right? Is ballot access. And we already had about 5 people who wanted to run for state rep. And it's like, really in Pennsylvania, the best way to do this is under political. We can stack those signatures. The signatures for the state rep will count for the gubernatorial candidate if we, put them together under one name. So it developed into we probably need to found a political body. And that's all it was at first. But then more and more people started coming to us and saying, I have this, vision for a party that is not so ideological, where we're not arguing about cultural issues, but the things that voters have been trying to tell the politicians for years, and they're just not listening. A coalition of independents. And, you know, more and more people, you know, great activists who had stepped away from politics were, you know, coming to this idea. And then at that point, the donors started approaching us. And it's like, what is even happening right now? Right? Because we have all, you know, developed reputations as activists. So everything just came together really beautifully. We actually just finished a telemarketing drive where we called about 20,000 people and asked them to run with Joe. And I don't have the complete results from that yet, but, you know, we probably have at least 35 or 40 candidates from our initial recruitment push. And there will be at least one or two more. So when I say we're hitting the ground running, we're a party that's been around for literally 2 weeks. And we already have a lot of candidates who want to run under our name. You know, we're really building a movement. We're letting people know that we're here. We're good at this. We've been doing it for years, and we're taking all of those lessons and applying it, you know, to the Keystone Party. So
there's
anyway, that's the high level.
Yeah.
So a fascinating question then is, so famously Pennsylvania executes the Moulton maneuver, elects 349,000 libertarians across the board. You guys are going to be able to take advantage of that same thing because you are not a Republican or Democrat, right? So you have the same capacity to do that.
Yep, that is correct. And that is, you know, the plan. I mean, we will target some of those races next year. I'm up for re-election next year for my 6-year term. I don't know if it'll be unopposed, but it may be because, you know, at least my local Democrats have said that they won't oppose me to be reelected. And I would imagine that I would run under Keystone. But yeah, I mean, I don't know that. I mean, we'll see where we're at. You know, that's one of the issues here is, you know, we don't have county committees yet. You know, we do have a state board and, you know, we're building up our regions and we have a couple of places where we have local committees developing, but really we need to convalesce around this campaign. You know, that's our sense of community is our campaign this year. And, you know, we're hoping to bring in the volunteers just like we did through the Jorgensen campaign. I mean, after the Jorgensen campaign as a vice chair, I helped organize 8 counties. So we're hoping the Solaski campaign can, you know, do that for us this year. And I think it will. I mean, Joe is a great candidate and like, you know, Nicole is a great running mate. You know, that's how we build these things. But, you know, in the meantime, you know, we're really focused on this year because everything's happening so fast. It really is a crazy thing to form a party and plan on running statewide candidates. You know, that same year. But yeah, I mean, I don't know that we'll be able to do all 67 counties where we're, you know, looking for uncontested races, but we'll certainly be able to do some where we've developed infrastructure. And I think that we're going to be in a good position by next year to, you know, I mean, we may be able to set a metric of 50 or so. You know, I've always been very realistic about these things.
Yeah. So I know that there are a lot of disappointed libertarians in Pennsylvania at this point. What is the difference between Keystone and the Libertarian Party?
Oh, there are so many differences. You know, ideologically, we are pro-liberty, but we're not really interested in having, you know, ideological battles about who's the most libertarian and things like that. We also are going to be more willing to let, you know, candidates kind of set their policies rather than message from the state, which has kind of been the drive. I feel that libertarians think that they're the only people who are awake and it's their job to wake up the rest of the voters. And I think with Keystone, we kind of take an opposite approach where we think that the voters have been telling the politicians for a very long time, you know, what they're not happy about, and the politicians just aren't listening. You know, so we really, if you look at our platform, which, you know, is not as robustly developed as, you know, we would like at this time. But, you know, we're going to fill it out and, you know, flesh it out quite a bit more. But, you know, we do have a lot of, you know, very libertarian-esque policies in there. I mean, you know, the right to bodily autonomy and, you know, being anti-war and, you know, anti-police state. But, you know, also, you know, very high at the top of our list are, you know, things like ranked choice vote and limits and, you know, some of that electoral reform. like I said, a lot of this is going to be up to the candidates to really put out there. And, Joe Salaski was running as a Libertarian. So I think that it would be a comfortable fit, but people should understand that they're not coming to the Libertarian Party. It is structured very differently. We've learned our lesson with a lot of things. And, we've taken from the Democrats and Republicans too about that, what they do well to tamper down infighting and things like that. And I think that, when we have our, convention here this upcoming month and we, set our officers and our bylaws and stuff a little bit more in stone, you'll see that it's structured differently. It's not a member service organization. I don't even know that we're going to have member dues. That stuff to keep an eye out for. Right now, we're so focused on our candidates and recruiting people for the ballot that's all we've had time to think about. So, but you will see the differences.
So, I think that's one of the criticisms that we've had within the LP is that we didn't have a mechanism to keep out people who wanted to do ill. And so that's one of the things that you're going to bake into the system within the Keystone Party.
I'm sorry, my connection is really cutting out. I hardly heard your question.
I'm sorry. So, one of the criticisms of the LP is that we didn't, we didn't do enough to keep out the people that wanted to do harm to the party. So that will be baked into the Keystone Party, that preventative measure to keep out the people that want to do harm.
How do maybe she can't?
You're cutting out. I can't hear you.
Let me try. So the question is, one of the things that's become apparent is that the Libertarian Party had some structural weaknesses.
I can't hear you either, Dan.
Oh,
all right. We think it's you, Jen. Let's type the question in. So we're gonna type it into the chat. You fill, Dave.
Yeah. So or Jen, if she wants to disconnect and come back in, see if that works.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm going to shut down and come back in because it's not working real well. I'll be right back.
Yeah. In the meantime, Dave, tell me a joke.
Hey, it's not the Buffalo Sabres this week.
No, it's true. What did you think of the USFL? Did you watch any of it today?
I did. I watched one of the games. You know what? I'm going to tell you that with the USFL is that if that is the fan reaction at the stadium, that's not a league that's going to be around real long. That's the problem is that they've chosen to do this. We're going to do it at one single stadium. And that worked during the COVID. People kind of understood that during COVID. But now that COVID is going away, there's no reason they shouldn't be at the home stadiums of these teams.
Well, especially one of the things that I would love to see is, I don't know how much you're following in Chicago. The Bears are moving out of Soldier Field, moving into a new field that they're building in Arlington Heights.
Oh, really?
Yep. Now,
what's it? Soldier. They just renovated Soldier, didn't they?
They did. They renovated it to the point that they now call it the eyesore on the shore. I mean, it is hideous. It looks like somebody cracked a flying saucer in half and just jammed it into Soldier Field.
Yeah, I really didn't think that it looked that bad when we went to Chicago last year.
It's weird more than anything else. But what's weird about it is that they kept all of the outside of Soldier Field and then just put this new stadium inside of it.
Yeah.
But regardless, so the Bears are leaving there. But I think that's a tremendous opportunity for USFL team to start playing there. And I would look to some of the other stadiums. Like if I were a DC stadium or a DC team, hey man, I would go play the old RFK.
Oh God, no! Do not play an RFK. Oh, so when I first moved to DC, I became a season ticket holder for DC United.
Yeah,
and they played at RFK, and that place is just basically a tetanus shot waiting to happen. It is rusted. It is, it's decrepit. I wouldn't eat the food there. I mean,
is that still where DC United plays?
No, they built a new soccer-specific stadium on the waterfront, kind of close to the Nat Stadium, Audi Field.
Really?
Yeah. So it's a nice stadium. It's smaller, of course. I mean, our RFK was such a barn for soccer.
Okay.
You get 20,000 people in there, and it still looked half empty. So well, actually 90% empty.
But I think that I do think that there's an interesting opportunity of older stadiums that like NFL teams have moved on from that you could do. Like, I mean, unfortunately, the Silver Dome was torn down.
Well, I mean, you could do college stadiums. I think that's where the games are being played right now is the University of Alabama Birmingham Stadium. It's
Yeah.
not a bad field, so
No. But I think
Jen's back, but her camera's not working just yet, so I'll wait till her camera's up.
if you want to do it, but if you want to have local games, right? I mean, if you want to build a local fan base, you got to do that.
Yeah.
But you know what? Play smaller. Play local high school fields. They're not doing anything in the.
And it looks better on if you have 500.
Exactly right. Look, the stands are packed.
Yeah, exactly.
We must have 500 people here.
All right, let's bring Jenn back in.
All right.
Hey, Jenn.
Hey, sorry about that.
That's all right.
We blamed your kids. They're downloading movies and.
They're asleep. They're asleep.
Okay.
They're smart.
Yeah.
All right. So the question we were posing before the break is that the criticism of the LP is that it didn't do enough to keep out the people that wanted to do the party harm.
The riffraff.
Yeah. Well, yeah. What are you going to be baking that into kind of the Keystone Party as it's being formed?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the thing is, like, the board will be more self-perpetuating. It'll be run more like a not-profit. We will have officer elections. Like I said, all of that is not completely hammered out yet. We've been working on it. I think the one thing that I want people to understand the most, and that, all of us have tried to, put out there, is that, we're done with the caucus wars. This is not about the LP. They're a separate party. We will engage them at ballot box, right? Like, I mean, just like the Greens or the Republicans or the Democrats, they're a separate party, a separate group of people. And I think that more voices, at the polls is better. So, all the more power to them. We're just doing a new thing. Like, we don't want the negativity. We don't want to deal with it. Like, we really didn't appreciate some of the cathedral posts and stuff comparing Keystone to the LP, because that's not what we're about. In any way, shape, or form. Like, all of us are just ready to move on. And, all of us have had different stages of grief for our activism. But, most of us, at least who are in leadership, are kind of like, just in our stage of acceptance. And we're very comfortable with what we're doing. I'm going to tell you what, it feels like the LP did 5 years ago. Like, I'm working on positive stuff right now with my friends. Like, I mean, it's been nothing but wonderful talking to these candidates. I did a couple hours of phone banking myself yesterday. And I had a really good time, closed a couple candidates, and, a lot of people didn't answer their phone, but that was fine. It was good stuff. It was, just working on positive outcomes. But yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that, you're going to have to put in the actual work as an activist to get elected to a position within this party. Like, you're going to have the hours in, a volunteer time and working on actual projects. It's not going to be a popularity contest about who has the most followers on Twitter.
So have you had any candidates switch already?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. That's been, so Pennsylvania, our election code is such that you can't belong to a political party 30 days prior to the primary and run under a political body. So to be a political party, you need to get at least 2% of the highest vote in a statewide election. So obviously we're not going to be able to be a party until maybe after this year. We were targeting specifically voters who belong to a party, asking them to change, because after today's the 30-day mark. So after today, they're not going to be able to switch over. We can still recruit people who are independents or who belong to a political body rather than a party all the way up until August 1st. So that's why we had such a heavy, drive this week to try to get people to change their party. And like I said, we had better luck with that than I, ever would have imagined. People are excited about the project. But, a lot of it just speaks for the level of activists that we've brought with us. A lot of people walked out with us and they were just ready to be done. Most of us wanted to take a long break from politics. That was my intention. But we just, had this project of getting Joe and Nicole on the ballot that kept the team together. And I don't think that's a bad thing, because we have so much institutional knowledge here. You see other states where they had takeovers where the team kind of scattered to the four winds. Thankfully, that's not happening in Pennsylvania.
So tell us about some of the other, if you're comfortable with doing that, tell us about some of the other folks involved in the project.
Yeah, I don't know how many of them, want it put out there. I mean, I wanted them to make their own announcements, obviously. Obviously, we have, Joe and Nicole who have come over. John. We also, Christine Womack, who is their campaign manager, who has been very active. Kevin Goggin and Steve Sheets came with us and, have made public announcements that they're Keystone now. Avery up in Schuylkill County has made an announcement that he's Keystone now. So, you see people coming over who have, very publicly said they're a part of this movement. They really all want me to be chair. I agreed to be the interim chair until our convention in May. I really don't like the job. I never wanted to be chair ever of anything.
I feel that. That's so hard. No.
So, yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where, I really would like to be the ballot access and the elections manager. When I was putting together these spreadsheets of people to phone bank to, I was happy as a clam, because I was just dealing with my election spreadsheets. But we do have a couple of people who have grudgingly agreed to step up if I won't do it. So we'll see how the convention goes. Right now we do need somebody who's kind of doing that, direction and talking to donors and so on and so forth. We actually just had our bank accounts set up this week. Developing a party is a process. You have to have your articles of incorporation, and then you have to, go and apply to be a party. There's tax forms.
Are you guys only at the state level? Or are you also going to file with the FEC?
We're only doing the state level right now. The FEC is a lot of extra burden. So we're with Pennsylvania right now, but we did have to file some IRS forms. So, we had to have legal counsel on all of that too, to make sure we were doing everything properly, even though that we're, all seasoned activists. This was new paperwork. So.
Yeah. That's awesome. That the thing that you talked about that feeling of wanting to just be done when you think things are collapsing. I very much identify that with that myself, and sort of, I went through this period of I'm just going to go on and I'm going to have a regular life, because I remember my regular life before getting involved in politics, and it was a lot better than all this other stuff. But then there's this call, right? And it's not just about politics. It's about the future. And I wonder if you could talk about that, especially for you, somebody raising children, how important it is for you to plan for the future.
That is why I got into politics, was because I was a stay-at-home mom at the time. I was back in that job that I was very frustrated in, that I dropped down to part-time, and I was just looking at the state of this country. And I just, I was sick for my babies, that, we were just it's like we were barreling towards a cliff. And, that's why I decided to get involved in politics at that time. I think that the thing that goes for, everybody who's involved in the Keystone right now is that we all do believe that there are still political solutions. We're not looking for a violent revolution. We're not looking for secession. We're not, anarchist. We believe that there is a political solution, in getting good liberty-minded people into these roles in government can help scale it back, that we don't need a collapse and an overhaul.
Oh.
But she's right. We don't need that
mindset.
collapse.
So, this is right. Right. So, this is just, looking to the future and thinking there is a political solution to some of the problems we're facing. And going back to Nicole's comment, we do have the best treasurer, and she also is the best lieutenant governor candidate. So
excellent.
That's awesome. So, I love hearing that idea that there is a way to work towards a smaller government that is possible to pursue without saying I am either for no government or against no government. You don't want to talk about having no government. You're talking about just reducing the size and scope of government right now. How is that one of the things that you think that Keystone is going to be able to communicate to a group of voters in Pennsylvania who have consistently said, "Well, we really want more government"?
Well, Joe Swaski is the expert at that because he's our big level candidate, but I can tell you, just as a township auditor, there have been times where I think in particular, there was a situation where they just wanted their pound of flesh over a situation just because they could. And you can stand up and say, why are you doing this? Like, why are you charging this business or this, billboard company or whatever, money just because you can? And they all sit there and look at you and they say, I don't know. But, sometimes they'll back down if they're just called out on it on the spot in that meeting. So starting at local level government, just having that voice in the room sometimes is enough, because not very many people show up to those meetings. So, if you're the person who says to them, hey, do you guys think that maybe you're overreaching here? You can get things changed at the local level. I think that more people than we realize are of that classical liberal mindset.
So how many people then, this is something I ask, like whenever I talk with elected officials, how many people have expressed to you at some point in time after dealing with you and saying, I thought you were going to be crazy. I thought you were going to be.
Yeah, absolutely. That's, libertarians are crazy people that live on the internet, right? We're not real. And a libertarian woman is really a unicorn. And I still say libertarian because I'm just small L now. I still own that word because that is my mindset. I'm a classical liberal. I'm a small L libertarian. People do think we're crazy because that is the way that political discourse has gotten in this country. I think that, part of it is just, the social media age where you have to say the most crazy, bombastic thing to get attention. And I've always felt that wasn't necessary. I think that good ideas are good ideas. I have Democrats and Republicans in my township call me now for my opinion on things because they respect my opinion as a small government, liberty activist, because they realize I'm not crazy. But we have to get people out into the communities actually doing the work. Because until we do, they're going to think that we're that guy who's yelling on Twitter. Right.
Yeah. And I think that's the difference between activists and what you describe as libertarians. We got activists out there spreading the message every day. You, Dan, myself, a lot of people get out there and spread the message every day, but then we got people that try and ruin that on Twitter or Facebook or wherever, and it's not been a fun ride, that's for sure. But
it's sure, and that's one of the reasons that I wanted to move on was I just felt like it was both the professional liability and just kind of an ethical quandary to be associated with a lot of that. It's interesting too that we were talking in our group recently that one of the things that kind of caught up with us is the difference between goal-oriented people and people who are more interested in the social club aspect. Everybody who's involved with Keystone is very goal-oriented. They're not worried about being caught up in the nuance of a 45-page policy manual, right? They're not going to argue the definition of a couple of words. Yeah. So, all of us have our eye on the goal of getting our candidates on the ballot, and we're going to do what it takes to get there. We're just not going to be arguing about nuance because all of us are goal-oriented people who want to get something done. And I didn't feel like it was like that in my past organization. There was a lot of just arguing about policy and, not really focused on okay, what's the broader picture? What are we trying to get done?
Exactly.
Go ahead, Dave.
No, you go ahead, man.
I was going to say that, there is this interesting dynamic between the people who are getting a lot of stuff done and the people who want the social component, because, elections are really right. It's not about activists at the end. It's about the
Right.
people who aren't active and getting them to vote. And we've always felt like I guess you can't call those social oriented people socialists, but the social oriented people have that one thing, right? And I guess that's the tough thing of trying to resolve it, is trying to keep them appeased without letting them mess up the policy part.
Right.
And that's a really difficult dance, especially, I mean, it's having been in it for so long, we see the fundamental flaws of party structure in general. But you guys, you're writing this whole clean slate.
Mhm.
I'm sure at times it must be like overwhelming to think, don't make that same mistake. Don't make that same mistake. Is there one thing that you looked at and you're like, this part we're going to do better than we've done previously?
I mean, I think that all of us are just, of the opinion that the board should be doing boring board stuff, right?
Right.
Like, I mean, we should be like, filing state paperwork and like, we shouldn't be getting bogged down and trying to plan social events and stuff for people. Like, that's the candidate's job, to go out there and connect with people that way. So, I mean, I think that is like our biggest thrust to do better, is to, and I mean, if you look at the major parties in a lot of ways, that's how things are, other than like, maybe like, a high end, like, dinner party at the holidays or something. It is mostly candidate oriented. So, that's something that, I've always felt that way anyway. And that's why I was frustrated, because like, my vision of how things should be and the reality was, it wasn't meshing. And that's when, you're just in the wrong room. Like, I mean, it was not my job to change the party. It was my job to build a new one. And now I know that.
And it's interesting because we have a lot of people who will occasionally say, oh, well, the party should be doing more for me as a candidate.
Yeah.
But that's kind of a backwards thing, isn't it? Right? Because I mean, if
It
you're
is.
a great candidate, yeah, why don't you elaborate on that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm telling you that, the reason why we have this party is because Joe's a great candidate and Nicole's a great candidate, because all of these people came together and we had people who were willing to help, pay for this telemarketing and everything. Presumably, I hope that, more donors will, come forward and help us, with our next couple of projects. But like, I mean, they all came together because we had great candidates who have been putting in the work.
Yeah. So if somebody is interested in starting a
Other
Keystone,
candidates, as far as, being here for, advice and, making sure that, we help them through, some of the pitfalls. But like, I mean, like I said, this is boring party stuff. Like, we're helping them organize a ballot access drive. That's a lot of help. It's a lot of work. We're making sure that they have their papers, they're correct. We're organizing them. We're turning them into Harrisburg. I mean, there is value to having a party structure, but, the candidates should be helping to bring in the activist and the money. It's like, I mean, it's a symbiotic relationship where, we're helping each other. We realized we needed a party to support the candidates, but the candidates are the reason for the party.
Well, and I think it's also a great sort of weed out. If you can't get people to support your campaign, you shouldn't be doing anything else.
Exactly. Yep. Yep. That's just it.
so if somebody's interested in forming a Keystone Party in their state, who should they reach out to?
Well, right now we're a little bit overwhelmed. I would say give me, another couple weeks, but you can certainly, reach out to me. I'm, the chair at the moment. I've repurposed my old chair page to be a Keystone page. Yeah, Steve's right. It has definitely been brutal.
Yeah.
Well, his work, I mean, but it's been a lot this past couple of weeks, just with us organizing everything so quickly. We've been all hands on deck, but our team, like whenever we say we need something, they're right there. It really, forming a party is very different state by state. So I would probably have to, research to help you. So, it may not be something that, we can help with right this minute, but I think that it's just a matter of us, talking it out, seeing who you have and what their experience is in your state. And then just, probably, us agreeing that, on the platform and, the bylaws structure, and that, they're going to move forward with, the type of structure that we have. We need to have our convention in May before we've really hammered that down. So I probably don't have all the answers that somebody would want right this minute.
Sure. I would say if somebody out there is watching this and says that they want to form a Keystone Party in their state, do some legwork on your end to understand your local state's electoral laws, how to get a ballot or get a party recognized, what entails in that, and your basic ballot access laws would go a long way to helping you interface with the Keystone Party and getting one off the ground.
Yeah.
But all right, Jenn. So Jen, we're going to be starting a new tradition on the political deep dive. We're doing the news quiz. Dan used to be the host of Libertarians at Large on LPTV. A long time. That show is no longer with us. RIP. So we're taking something from them, and that is the news quiz. Now, Dan, you did the New York Times news quiz, right?
I had previously done the New York Times news quiz. However, they have since locked that away behind a firewall. So we're going to do the CNN news quiz.
Oh, no, I've got it up. I've already got it up.
Do you? All right, let's do that then.
I would have done much better with New York Times. That's the one I read.
All right. So New York Times, the CNN news quiz for the week, 5 things. It's not 5 questions. It's 10.
Wait, you said you had the New York Times one.
No, I'm sorry. I said I had the CNN one up.
CNN.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. So question 1, the Biden administration is bracing for a massive surge of migrants at the U.S.-Mexico border. When is the surge expected to occur? The choices are May, July, September, or November.
I'm pretty sure that Trump said it was going to be on Cinco de Mayo. So,
well, the Biden administration is the one that's saying this one.
Yes, I was trying to make a joke, but
I would say, I don't know. What's your?
I had not heard this. This was off my radar.
I think that like part of it is there is another sort of caravan coming, and it's in Costa Rica or somewhere right now. My guess is still going to be July.
July?
Yeah.
This doesn't have anything to do with migrant workers or anything, does it?
No, I mean there is. So no, you know what? It's May because there's a Trump law that expires in May.
That makes sense.
Okay. And so it is going to be May, and it has something to do with like I don't remember exactly what it is, but that they, they could do Trumpy things, and now they can't.
Okay. So if you have an answer in the audience, feel free to pop it into the chat. But we'll go with May. Correctamundo.
Yep.
On the 23rd, the Biden administration is set to lift a Trump-era border policy known as Title 42 that cites pandemic concerns to justify denying people entry in the United States. So, just another thing about the pandemic coming to an end.
Can we talk about how border control is socialism?
It is socialism.
Yeah, because socialism is by definition the government controlling the means of production. When the government doesn't let you hire the workers that you want to work for your company, that's definition of socialism, even if they're on the other side of the border.
I put myself through college working as a production welder in a shop that made automotive parts. And I'm telling you what, the immigrants that I worked with were the hardest workers that I've ever worked with in my entire life.
Yep.
So
yeah. I was on this week with a Republican talking about this is after the show. We were talking about immigration policy. I made the point that every day if I want to do anything in the area, like when I go into my office, I cross several borders. I go from West Virginia to Maryland, and Maryland into DC, and back. And it's not unheard of for me to go from see 5 states in a day. And why is that border okay for me to cross, but an international border is not? And then, they said, well, we should have H-1B visas increased. let people come into work because we actually have not a skill gap, but actual human gap to be able to staff the work that we have going on in the United States. That if you don't bring in people to replace it, because we're not doing it by birth at this point.
Right.
We have to bring in people to replace.
I'm blaming you for that too, Dave.
Yeah.
But
Gas.
but you're completely true. Is that we have this shortage of labor that we could be addressing, and we could be addressing a number of ways. We could pardon all the nonviolent drug people, get them to work. That would be amazing because it's hard for them to find jobs anyway. Solve a couple of problems there, but absolutely anybody, and we don't even have to go to the extreme of open borders. Let's just say anybody who's got a job offer can come in, right? Come in and work at that job. That would be a big win.
Or, I mean, for me, just you come in, you are identified at the border, and then unless you pop something on the international crime registry that, or have it, a violent criminal record, violent criminal record within the United States, then. And I'm not talking about smoking weed and got kicked out. I'm talking about actual violent criminal record.
Yeah.
Then come on in, work, pay taxes. Don't pay taxes, but
I have some friends who are Irish musicians that I met over in Doolin, and I've gone to see them in Canada, but they don't come to the United States. And the reason why is it's so hard to get a work visa, even for an entertainer. So we miss out on so much because only the huge acts. I mean, these guys are really, really good. They play traditional Irish music, and but to get a work visa to come here for 2 weeks or a month, it costs thousands of dollars. It's a year-long process. Like, they're just not going to deal with it. It's just, it's not within their grasp. So if I want to see them, they come and tour Canada, and I drive up to Hamilton.
Tell them to go play in Boston, because seriously, half the Irish bands in Boston are playing there under the table.
It is,
I think Boston's the only city that can support Irish bands like that, but it's a great place to see them. All right,
these guys are excellent, but it's difficult for any kind of visa. All right, next.
Question number 2: Who will French President Emmanuel Macron face in the presidential election runoff? This one's an easy one. The choices are Jean-Luc Mélenchon, Marine Le Pen, and Frank-Walter Steinmeier.
I don't know who that is.
Yeah, I don't know who that is.
It's Marine Le Pen.
It is Marine Le Pen. She is the head of the far-right party her father started.
Right. Now she has distanced herself from her father's politics.
Yeah, but she's still kind of in that Viktor Orban orbit.
Definitely
anti-immigration, anti rights.
Right. France for French people, which she doesn't understand. To the rest of the world, sounds terrible.
So yes, Jean-Marie.
It's interesting in France how they have like a permanent underclass of immigrants, though. I mean, it's been years since I've been there, but I actually studied there when I was working on my master's degree. I studied abroad in Angers, and I was in Paris, and I was in Brussels for a little bit, but mostly Angers. And I was surprised, in the United States, people are integrated. At least their next generation, you're American, but in France, you were just a permanent underclass. If you were, if your parents were immigrants, you were not accepted into French culture.
The vestiges of really their colonialism, right? Because Algeria was a French colony for so long that, there's all these Algerians who they consider second-class citizens because they came in as had been colonized, stuff like that. And, the same thing with, they have this large Vietnamese population from when Vietnam was a French colony. But, no, it's ridiculous for the French to have this attitude, because should they win, they will find out what the rest of the world knows. French people don't work very hard. So, their country is being supported by the people who come there, who are really working really hard. A vacation we did once, and I recommend to everybody: Christmas in Paris. And I say that as a person who doesn't celebrate Christmas much, but man, it's awesome because first of all, you do have a large non-Christian community that keeps everything open. Then the City of Light is just gorgeous at Christmas.
It is.
And it's, I don't know. It's going to be weird to see what happens here. I suspect Macron is going to win, but
I think they're making a lot out of Marine Le Pen. She was doing well in the polls, but I look at how the far right parties overall did in the first election versus the people that don't like the far right parties with it, and the big worry is that some of the more left wing parties will not show up to the next election. But I think the idea, we saw where if people don't show up, what could happen? You could have a Donald Trump get elected. So
right. Well, and they're trying to scare people into showing up for that reason. But I also think it's interesting to talk about it from an electoral perspective of, they're doing a, not an instant runoff, but it was a, essentially a top two if nobody gets more than 50%. And so even then, as much as I'm going to ride the French, they're doing that better than the way we do presidential politics.
Yeah. And of course, if you're a major party candidate within France during the first round of polling, you're in the debates and all that fun stuff. So, it's the U.S. is probably the worst electoral system there is that actually
That's true.
My democratic government.
At least in France, they have multiple parties.
Yep.
Exactly. So who won the 2022 Masters tournament? Was it Tiger Woods, Rory McIlroy, Scotty Scheffler, or Jordan Spieth?
I have no idea.
I do.
But I'm going to guess that it was Jordan Spieth because if it were Tiger Woods, it would have been such a big story. I would have heard about it.
Yeah.
The Masters was on. I was at a family get together and I was not watching it, and I don't know.
I actually do know this one because I was thinking when I saw this name roll across the screen, I was like, that doesn't sound like a golfer. That sounds like a guy with a Camaro.
Wow. So Scotty Scheffler?
Scotty Scheffler. Yeah.
Wow. That's awesome.
Who's like an amateur porn actor, He does not sound like a golfer, but hey, Scotty Scheffler, congratulations on winning the Masters tournament, and he ran away with it. So, they do talk about Tiger Woods. Tiger Woods, for the fact that he almost lost his leg last year, and still, over the years has been plagued with back injuries, but still had back injuries from the accident. For him to actually make it around the course a couple times, and he actually ran, did all 4 rounds, is an amazing testament to his ability. So,
I mean, I would like to see Tiger have future success at some point.
But I think Tiger is now older than Jack Nicklaus when he won his last Masters.
Interesting. I don't know that. I think Jack won pretty old.
He was 46 years old. He was not that old. In fact, I'm older than Jack Nicklaus when he won his last Masters.
Dude, you're really old though.
Yeah. Thanks. But let's see.
I know this one.
Jennifer Lopez rekindled an old flame when she got engaged this week. Who asked J-Lo to marry her for the second time? Or
Ben Affleck.
Bennifer.
Yeah.
Do you agree?
I have no idea. I don't follow this stuff at all, guys. I could care less.
This one is because they were in love before, and Ben's mother wouldn't let them get married. She didn't approve of J-Lo, which is insane because I try to keep general comments about people's physical appearances to myself, but J-Lo is insanely beautiful, right? Unbelievably talented. How could you not want her? And the answer is, it's old school Massachusetts racism.
Yeah.
She didn't want her to marry somebody whose last name was Lopez. But now Ben's old enough; he's going to stand up for himself. And I think
maybe mom's no longer in the picture. So,
right,
yeah. And yes, it is Mr. Ben Affleck.
Good job, guys.
Yeah, so,
you're more up on the celebrity gossip than me, obviously.
I know. It's awesome. So yeah, second time now. One thing I do remember about her first engagement to Ben was the video called Jenny from the Block, and it was talking about her, having this massive ring and stuff like that, and flaunting it, and she caught some heat for that. But
I would have to imagine that Jenn, also being named Jenn, she's familiar with the song Jenny from the Block.
Yeah. People bring that one up occasionally.
All right. So
I hate being called Jenny. The only people who ever did it were my dad and my grandma, and I couldn't make them stop.
Yeah, you can't. Question number 5: which U.S. city is home to the world's busiest airport? I know this one.
I believe that it's ATL.
It is the ATL.
So there's a great story about that. If you haven't read Barbarians at the Gate, it's the story of the RJR Nabisco takeover.
Yeah.
And it's phenomenal. And essentially, they spent a tremendous amount of money to build up that airport to make it into the giant airport that it is today. It's fascinating.
Yeah. And believe me, I mean, walking across Hartsfield-Jackson is no fun task, especially sometimes the plane train does not work and you have to haul your bag for 2 miles. It's not fun. So
Yep.
But yes, Atlanta is a massive airport. Does it say? Yeah. So I guess Guangzhou Baiyun Airport in China was the number one, but in the United States for several years it's been Hartsfield-Jackson.
Right. And those Chinese numbers are inflated anyway.
Probably. And especially with everyone being locked down in COVID now.
Exactly.
All right. President Biden announced a significant new regulation on Monday. I know we're going to know what this one is. What measure is meant to contain? What is the measure?
Ghost guns. He's afraid of ghost guns.
Who?
He's going to call Bill Murray, Dan Aykroyd, and Ivan Reitman to be the ghost gun buster, Ghostbuster gun force to keep them out. It's silly.
It is. It's really completely silly. So untraceable guns. That's new firearm regulation meant to curtail the use of so-called ghost guns, which are unregulated, untraceable weapons. So how are you going to regulate them?
Right. One of my favorite liberty activities that I did was in Massachusetts. At one point in time, banned the printed plans for whatever was the 3D rage lower thing, and so we put it on a flash drive along with a copy of Huck Finn, Catcher in the Rye, the Koran, pretty much everything we could find that had been that was in the public domain that had since been banned at one point in time or another. Yeah. And we distributed them to all the legislators in Massachusetts. Nice. And put it in their mailbox. It was pretty awesome.
That's excellent. Yeah, this is going to spectacularly fail. I mean, basically what it's going to be is just another way for a Fed to add on charges once, if you get busted with one of these in your possession. But it's not going to prevent any.
No, I mean, it's
from being done.
It's a battle between warhead and armor. We're going to get, as technology gets better and better, it's going to be easier and easier to make your own gun. So the question is, how much can you do to ban knowledge from the people?
Exactly. Jen, what did you want to say?
Biden regulations have been like a huge part of my life this year, working in healthcare finance. We could do a whole show on that. But things have not been easy on the provider side with some of the just arbitrary things that we've been racing to comply with. And this is another arbitrary one. It's been a rough year already, and it's only April.
Yeah. I don't think it's going to get any better because I'm pretty sure they know that they're going to get a shellacking in November. So they're just going to keep heaping on stuff as we go through the year, knowing that they're going to have an unfriendly House and Senate off.
Except that they can't get anything through the Senate.
Yeah.
Well, no, it's going to be
an executive order.
It's going to be an executive order palooza, and I mean,
but in that case, midterms don't matter.
What's that?
In that case, the midterms don't matter because Joe can still do executive orders, but
he can. But the House and Senate can probably rein in some stuff. Probably shut down the government. He
keeps moving back the student loans. I just got notice that my student loans are now August. Now we're just doing it 2 months at a time, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of nice. I'm putting the money in building a new deck instead, but
well, the interesting thing about it is that if you do pay right now, while they're not charging interest, you are essentially just paying down the equity.
Yeah, but my loans are at like such low interest. It's like 2.3% because it was only my very last few, because I graduated my master's in 2007. So like those Bush era, like, jump to 6.7% was only like my last semester. So like at 2.3%, I'm going to pay for everything else first, right?
2.3%, you should put it all in Bitcoin. No, I'm kidding.
Right?
Yeah, don't do that. All right, so question number 7. Which major airline slashed its flight schedule this week due to a shortage of pilots and crew? Was it United, JetBlue, Air France, or Delta?
Was it JetBlue?
Yeah, this one I'm not really sure. I know that there was some issues, and I think it might have been JetBlue, but
I think it's JetBlue because they're getting ready to merge with Frontier anyway.
Oh,
and then
I knew about that.
Frontier does. Oh.
I spent more nights in the Denver airport for delayed Frontier flight. I slept on the Denver airport floor when I was pregnant because of a delayed Frontier flight.
It's interesting. I am, I am probably half the people watching are heading out to Reno relatively soon, and flights are really expensive. But if you fly Frontier, I just got $200 round trip from DCA to Denver on Frontier. Now I just have to figure out the Denver side of things.
That's still a hell of a drive.
Oh, I'm not driving. Yeah, it's a 15-hour drive. I'm not driving.
Yeah, I was about to say that's a hell of a haul, dude.
There are regional airlines, stuff like that. Maybe do a Southwest something, but
yeah, hopefully. I mean, Reno that's the only question I have on the first announcement.
The only place
expensive
mentioned is Rapid City. Having been to Freedom Fest last year in Rapid City, that was a real disaster.
Yeah. I tell you what, it's such a relief not to be going to Reno. I'm going camping with my family, and I actually didn't even put in to be a delegate. So
I got the time off to go, but I'm just going to be here cooking barbecue.
I had committed to be on the bylaws committee before.
Oh yeah,
like before I'd given up on everything. I mean, I haven't given up, but I'm going to be giving up on all things party. But I still want to stick with that. I have like 4 basic things.
But the thing is, do you think that they're even going to get to your bylaws proposals? Like, I mean, a lot of people put in like a lot of work to put together bylaws proposals for LPPA, and they just like glossed over all of it and didn't even hear it.
4 days of credentialing, and then
oh my God.
But I will say, I was very fortunate to work with some great people on the bylaws committee.
Yeah, you guys had a great team. I had a great team on the ballot access committee too. And I have not stepped away from the ballot access committee. I'm going to finish out my term with the LP because I really do care about making sure they have ballot access in all these places. And Bill Redpath called me today and I need to call him back. But, I'm still a member of national in my state. I didn't, but yeah, I mean, we had a great team on ballot access. You guys had a stellar team on bylaws.
It was
once I left. Once I left.
Yeah, exactly.
Got that riffraff off that shit.
All right.
Question number 7.
JetBlue.
Is JetBlue. You are correct. JetBlue says it's canceling 8 to 10% of flights starting in May through the summer, following a weekend of widespread cancellations it blamed on severe weather. So May through summer, but it's a weather cancellation. Like, that doesn't make sense at all.
No.
So the only time I ever flew JetBlue was to Peru. I hiked the Inca Trail in 2016, and Hurricane Matthew came through Florida on our way back. And I actually got stuck in Lima for a whole extra week because JetBlue literally only had like 1 flight a day that was leaving from Lima, and they wouldn't put us on another airline. And my kids were babies, so I wasn't really happy about being stuck in Peru for an extra week. I mean, we did some neat stuff. We went out and like swam with the sea lions off the coastal islands, but like I never wanted to fly with them again because like I was scarred by being stuck in Lima for an extra week after. And of course, I was like sore, and I would have rather spent the week in Cusco if I could have like stayed in the Andes. But yeah, that's my JetBlue story. When they they finally got a flight. We were boarding, and they knocked us all off it because the plane broke down. So it was a long haul.
That's crazy.
Anyway, on to number 8.
Yeah, number 8. What popular ice cream company is undergoing a dramatic makeover? Is it Cold Stone, Haagen-Dazs, Dairy Queen, or Baskin-Robbins?
I know Haagen-Dazs is like trying to change some of its flavors to be more politically correct. Like
What's not politically correct about their flavors?
you know, they've got all those Nazis. No, I'm just kidding.
Like,
we're like hanging on your every word, and then you say that.
I actually know this one, but
I have no idea who it is, but I'm going to guess it's got to be Baskin Robbins.
you're correct. It's Baskin-Robbins. They decided to change their look. That's actually, I don't think that's the new one. That's the old one, but the 31 is a little more prominent in the new one. It's the lettering is a little more modern looking. So
I never realized there was a 31.
yep,
31 flavors of
that's
Baskin Robbins.
right there in the logo.
This is why I'm a finance person and not a marketing person, right?
I used to go to Baskin Robbins a lot in Texas when I was a kid, but I've never really seen Baskin Robbins be successful in states that have actual dairies.
Right. Yeah, that's not something that I would go out of my way to eat.
No. All right.
No, so far with all of this news, it's mostly stuff that I don't know anything about other than like, the French election. And,
This one is your question, Jen.
Yeah.
All right. What is it?
Okay. At least 23 people were hurt Tuesday after tornadoes ripped through which state? Texas, South Dakota, Florida, or Nevada?
I don't even know if I read about tornadoes this week. Like most of the stuff in my feed has been Ukraine.
I don't know this, but just based on area, I would have to guess Texas.
Yeah, I would guess
Most
Texas
likely.
too. Yeah, I would guess Texas as well.
Yeah, I'm going to guess Texas. So, oh, we got it.
Yep.
All right. South Dakota also is a part of Tornado Alley. So
There have been a lot of tornadoes lately.
yeah, there's
I mean,
this. I mean, we're having a system roll through tomorrow that might give us a little bit of snow in the morning. Like, why? It's April. Stop this. But it's just kind of this cycle of storms that just keeps rolling through the south and picking up moisture and bringing it up the East Coast. So, but yeah. Question number 10, the final one. Can we get a perfect score? What TV show earned a perfect score on Rotten Tomatoes this week? Was it the Kardashians, Bridgerton, Abbott Elementary, or Snowfall?
I don't even know what most of those shows are.
Bridgerton is done, so I don't think it's going to be Bridgerton. Bridgerton is. Did you ever watch Downton Abbey?
No, I've never watched it, but I know of it. My grandma liked that show.
Bridgerton is like the soft porn version of Downton Abbey. Snowfall, big sci-fi one. Never heard of Abbott Elementary.
Yeah.
If
it's the Kardashians, I'm eating myself off this planet.
All
yeah,
right.
that's what I'm thinking too.
Just the Kardashians.
I gotta say Snowfall.
All right, go with Snowfall.
Let's go with Snowfall because if it's the Kardashians,
Abbott
Elementary. Wow. Okay.
Huh. Interesting.
I've never even heard of it.
I've never heard of it either.
I think it's government schools though, so that's all I know.
Well, I mean, I do a lot of like political work and I read and I don't really watch much TV. So
yeah,
this is Arvin Vora's favorite TV show.
Oh God. That guy has reared his ugly head again. Like never have I been happier to have distanced myself from a group of people when I start seeing Arvin pop up again. Like no, just no.
Yeah, who is awoken Arvin? Put him back to sleep.
Yeah, like come on, like I see the screen and I start typing. I'm like, you know what? I don't even have anything to say. I don't belong to that party.
Yeah, that is the best thing. Is like the number of times that I say, you know what? I'm not even going to respond to this. This is now somebody else's problem. I'm not going to.
Not my problem. Not my circus. Not my ill-tempered flying monkeys.
Right.
All right. 9 out of 10. That's not bad.
Not bad. Not bad on the first attempt at the news quiz on the show. Jen, thank you for indulging us.
Jen.
Oh, we're not saying good night. We got.
Oh, we're not saying good night. Oh, okay.
We're not saying good night yet. We still got like a 20 minutes.
Did you ask Jen how long? Did you tell her?
Well, yeah. Do you want to stay up till 11:30?
Yeah, that's fine. I slept all day. I told you.
Well, yeah, that's true. Yeah, so she's rested. She's
all right. In that case, stop screen sharing. Let's get on to the good stuff.
All right. So this
next?
week, the biggest news in the Ukraine crisis is that
stop screen sharing.
Oh yeah, let me do that.
Good call. You know, one of the other, you guys are learning all of like the, you know, the nitty gritty facts about me from all of these, you know, podcasts I've been on. I collect antique watches, and some of the best watches that are still working are from like the old Soviet bloc. I mean, they made good watches. So like, I can't get my watches because of the war in Ukraine, which like, I mean, it's not, you know, like that's just such a minor thing compared to what they're going through. But like, you know, when it came time to like order me a birthday present, my family was kind of at a loss. They ended up getting me an espresso maker instead.
Well, there you go.
But you know,
does it have a clock in it?
It doesn't have a clock in it. So, but you know, yeah, that's one of the things that, you know, it's just, you know, that's one thing that, you know, the Soviets did really well was make watches that are still ticking decades later.
There's this weird thing about if you haven't advanced to the next level of technology, you become the expert at the old technology.
Like these are old wind up, you know, and some of them are really beautiful. You know, they're just in the simplicity of their design. So if you ever see me, you can see one of my Soviet watches.
I'm looking forward to seeing them because my uncle was almost accidentally was the last person making black and white monitors in the United States. And because of that, he was in business for like 7 years when he was trying to go out of business. People kept ordering like monitors for hospitals, for EKGs and ship radars and stuff like that. And finally he's like, there's just not enough money for me to keep working on this. You know, I'm just going home. But I think the Soviets are like that because, you know, they weren't making digital watches. They weren't making, you know, the finest diamond quartz things, stuff like that. So they became experts at the old world technology of you know, really fine crafted gears and stuff like that. Do you clean these watches, Jen? Do you disassemble and reassemble and all that stuff?
No, I would love to learn that. Like that was one of the things that I wanted to do after I did politics was like learn like some watch repair.
Yeah.
I think my wife could teach you. My wife worked for Movado.
All right, so you don't live very far away, so I'm going to come for like a weekend, like watch cleaning.
I'm going to come for that too. And Dave, you can just smoke a big butt, and I'll sit there and admire your cooking.
So, anyway, we're talking about important stuch like what Ukraine is actually going through, rather than my watches. You know, because it's horrific. Like one of the main reasons I got into politics was war. So you know, following this stuff has been awful.
So this week, Vladimir Putin screamed, "You sank my battleship." The Russian destroyer. Basically, it's a destroyer. It's a missile. Moskva. It's the best ship they have in the Black Sea at this point, and they can't get any more ships into the Black Sea because Turkey has shut off the Bosphorus. But this one was the one that harassed the people at that island there, where they said, you know, at the beginning of the war, where they said Russian warship, go fuck yourself. That's the Russian warship they were talking about. Yeah. And it got
fucked. I am a little dubious. I mean, right? There's no point in being like small L libertarian unless you get to believe in some crazy conspiracy theories. But you know, one of the biggest propaganda films of the Soviet Union was Battleship Potemkin, made by Sergei Eisenstadt. And, you know, there's some similarities to the sinking of the ship of the people who were loyal to the Soviet cause and that sort of thing. Enough so that in Red Storm Rising, Tom Clancy actually has the Russians replay the Battleship Potemkin movie in order to get the people motivated for a war. And so it wouldn't put it past me if they scuttled the ship themselves, but
Well, I mean,
Ukraine does make those Neptune missiles. It is entirely possible they could have shot it or sunk it.
Yeah.
And certainly we know from the Falcons, that ships are vulnerable to missiles.
Yeah. I mean, I will say that, I mean, there's been some stuff that come out since then. Like they talked about how the captain had died on the ship going down with the ship. Then when they had the heroes welcome back in Russia for these guys, where they showed all the people that had been rescued, he was among them. And I'm not really sure why. But yeah, I mean, there could be a conspiracy to kind of gin up more support for what Russia is planning on doing. Which today they announced that, or the last few days they've told the people of Mariupol to either surrender or face total war. And that's, I mean, there's not much left of Mariupol at
It's
this point.
insane.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty much a shell of a city, but there's still people there. There's still people there that can't get out because Russia's never been much for keeping those humanitarian corridors open.
No, it's unfortunate.
Yeah.
It is, the simple truth of the matter is that, Russia has a tremendous amount of artillery.
Right.
And when they want to just pound things from long distance, they can.
Yeah.
And that
I
may
think
be
it's
all
gonna
they
be
have left that they can do.
I think it's going to be artillery and air war. I think they're going to just Dresden bomb it.
Maybe it's. I mean, there's a standing still, surface to air missile losses that are pretty high.
But bombers can generally fly a little higher than that.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. But that leads us to the next thing: is that the United States is talking about another big aid package, and Putin said, you guys better not do that.
Yeah. That's an interesting warning. I'm wondering what's going to happen with that.
I don't know. I do think, I still think there's like, a 10 to 15% chance that you will see a tactical nuke or some other weapon of mass destruction be used, even though it's ridiculous. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, tactical nuke is a stupid weapon to use. It's only good as a terror thing.
It is, and I mean, if you're looking to take over a country, do you want one that's still glowing? Like,
yeah,
I mean, they don't seem to care by what they did in Chernobyl. I mean, they went and stirred stuff up and dug trenches and lived in the red forest. I mean, I hate to think what's going to, all those soldiers, the cancer they're probably going to.
yeah, I don't think their VA is that good either. So.
I mean, I don't think they even knew. It sounds like, the
soldiers
Russian
definitely
soldiers who were there, they had no idea there was even a nuclear disaster there. And they were just like, digging stuff up and breathing in the dust.
Yeah. The interviews with the soldiers that have been captured by the Ukraine are just astonishing.
Mm-hmm.
How incredibly in the dark they are. And it makes you wonder if there's like a value to trying to leaflet them or something else along the way, just, leaving out messages for the Russian soldiers saying, hey, maybe your tank breaks down. And, you get
that. We've seen where Russian soldiers have been sabotaging their own gear.
Oh, I would take it to the next level. I'd say, you bring it over to the Ukrainian forces and you guys get $50,000.
Yeah.
And
one of the other parents one of the families in our Cub Scout group, they're from Latvia. And so, he speaks Russian as well. So, him and I were joking about setting up a dating site, with my pictures and him speaking Russian to tell people what's happening. But we were only half joking. And I'm come on now. I'm middle aged. And he's like, no, it doesn't matter. We can make this work.
Well, I mean, that was one thing that they were doing in the beginning of the war was going on to things like Yelp, the Russian version of Yelp, and going into restaurants, like the most popular restaurants in Moscow, and leaving reviews. But the reviews were all about what was happening in Ukraine. It was basically just getting the news out around the government censors. So yeah, however we can get the message to the people of Russia is great. I was asked this week on the radio about, what's a libertarian stance on the
war in Ukraine.
the financial stuff. The what word is escaping me?
Crypto
Not the crypto. No, the financial penalties on Putin's
sanctions.
Oh, like the sanctions.
Sanctions.
Yeah.
Thank you. Having a senior moment. All right.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, but I said, look, I'm fine with having sanctions on Vladimir Putin, Russian businesses, Russian oligarchs, all that. I'm fine. Go after their yachts and all that good stuff. I don't like the sanctions that are on that are on the people.
Yeah.
I mean that's just harming people for no other reason other than hoping that they get stirred up enough to start some kind of revolution. But we've seen what happens when people get into the streets there.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there is a difference between harming people and inconveniencing them. I know I made a lot of people mad when I suggested that Apple should just brick all the iPhones that have Russian addresses.
Yeah.
But I don't really believe that harms people. It just becomes incredibly inconvenient. I mean, I get that millennials can't imagine a life without active screen time, but we all did used to do it before.
I think you're talking about Z. I'm technically a millennial, guys. I was born in '82.
Yeah, Z.
I know, it's crazy. I'm at the older end though. I'm on the cusp between, X and, but one thing that I wanted to bring up though is that, all the three of us are political super activists, right? Like we're entrenched in this stuff. And I think that sometimes we fail to recognize, just what motivates actual, regular people out there. Like things have to be really bad for them themselves before they're going to stand up and do anything. And I don't know that getting the message out to them about what's happening in another country, even if they don't agree with it, I don't know that they're going to be willing to personally put themselves at risk in numbers because, life hasn't changed for them themselves. The thing that may change things are all these dead bodies coming home from the front.
Yeah.
That is where life will get hard for them and they may stand up to it.
Yep. They're in Serbia, the thing that really made the biggest difference was the U.S. has these munitions that are essentially small pieces of aluminum foil. You drop them around power plants and the power plants stop working. And so they took out all the bridges in Sarajevo and turned off all the power. Didn't really kill a lot of people, which is good, but it made life incredibly inconvenient. And most people are like, yeah. And it's sort of a fact that wealthy countries generally don't go to war because the people are so happy and content. Unless you're able to have a class of people who, you keep in the dark and they don't know that stuff about it. The Russians have these people that, if they make them if they were to become unhappy, then it becomes the question of how good is technology at really suppressing revolution.
Right.
Yeah.
It's going to be terrible. But were you guys at the 2014 convention when so we had I'm not going to remember her name, but she was the president of the Russian Libertarian Party. She spoke. I mean, she was a young woman, 24, 25. But, she talked about, all the times they go out to protest and all the stuff that they do. And, they're into it, man. And they understand, we're going to go out and protest and half the people are going to get arrested. But they always had, 2 or 3 people in the group who weren't involved in the protest, but instead they took pictures of everybody got arrested. So immediately they get posted on Facebook. Oh, Ludmila Pavlova was arrested by Russian agents at Red Square at blah, 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 blah. We look forward to seeing her return, something like that.
I hate war.
Yeah, it's so senseless.
It is. It's so senseless.
I tell you what, I saw after the bombing of the train station, there was like a picture of like this child's toy, like a stuffed horse covered in blood.
Yeah.
And that was like, I don't usually get like emotive, but like that one made me tear up because like my daughter carries stuff like that around at 7 years old and they were just in a train station.
Yep.
What are these people thinking that they can do that to other people? I don't comprehend.
Yeah. And that is the key element of it, is that there is no rationalization for what is happening, right? Russia just decided to go in, and people are like, oh, Ukraine's been doing this and blah, 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 blah. There's no rationalization for it at all.
Yeah.
And, oh, it's America's fault because
It reminds me of our push to go into Iraq in
Yeah.
2003. I
It's
mean,
just
that's
complete
I mean, there
understanding.
are so many parallels to it, and, you know, why we're doing just dumb things out there. I mean, Russia has gotten a lot of political cover off of the fact that we did this stupid stuff,
yeah,
Yep.
and and they're not learning the lesson of, how long it took us to get out of Iraq and how out of Afghanistan and what was left when we left.
yeah.
Um, yeah,
Well, I mean, boy, if they're in Ukraine for 20 years, that's going to be pretty terrible for a lot
oh,
of them.
no, if they're in Ukraine for a year, Vladimir Putin's gonna get it. I mean, they can't sustain
No.
this for that long, just
Right.
economically, you know, and I think if he does kinda go to that nuclear option, you would hope that one of the generals in his inner circle, pulls out the card and
Yeah.
finishes him.
Yeah. I mean, the thing I worry about is, here he is, old spy master.
Yeah.
Does he have all those protections in place that I don't know. It's terrifying to contemplate.
Yeah.
My kids understand what's going on probably more than most elementary school kids get explained from their parents. I mean, I don't go into the details of the death and destruction, but one of the things my daughter asked me over dinner several weeks ago was just mommy, why do they keep fighting? And it's like, because they would rather die than not be free, because in Russia people are not free.
Right.
And that's that. I mean, that really is the only. And it's funny because their friends come to them trying to ask them about news of Ukraine, because they know that we talk to our kids about it, and the other kids want to know. They really are hungry for this knowledge of what's going on in the world. And we try to keep it as age appropriate as we can, but I mean, it's a war. And they hear me and Sean talking about it, so they have questions, and it's but I mean, ultimately that's the best way to break it down to a 7-year-old and a 10-year-old is they're fighting because that's what freedom, that's how much freedom means.
Yeah. I mean, I think that kind of speaks to a larger debate that we've had in the United States about social legislation that's coming out of Florida and Texas. The ability to talk to your kids when they have questions. I think a lot of people are afraid of that. A lot of parents are afraid of doing that. And I think that's the wrong tack to take with your children. If your children are inquisitive about a subject, you should be able to have maybe not a graphic conversation, but at least level with them on the basics of what's going on. Protecting people. Yeah, I mean, there is some value to be saying that we should let children be children, but children are getting hit with this stuff. You can't protect them. I mean,
I would rather they hear it from me than hear something scary about a nuclear bomb being dropped on New York because they got the wrong,
Right.
I mean, and they understand that the reason why we're not engaging and we're only sending weapons and we're not sending more help is the threat of a nuclear war.
Yeah,
and they understand what happened in Japan in World War II, at least at a higher level. I mean, they understand that, a nuclear bomb has not been dropped on people since then, and that there are treaties, and that, the world community has, worked to ever keep this from happening again. And that's the fear. And, their dad said it to them. I mean, it's a situation where if nuclear war broke out, it's something that's almost so terrible to think about that it's not even worth worrying about. Because if it happened, it would probably be multiple cities at once. And we didn't tell them that. But, that is how he said, it's not something that you can live your life worrying about. Because if it happens, it's going to be so terrible that,
It's so strange because
Right.
I grew up, and I know Dave did, and Jen, you're obviously a generation younger than us. But, with the idea of, a nuclear war means the end of the world.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
And I can't believe the number of people I've talked to and are like, oh man, yeah, it would really suck. For 5 years, it would be bad.
No.
Like, I mean, nuclear winter is like end of life on Earth type of stuff. Like,
exactly,
I mean, they don't.
exactly.
Yeah.
Like, I mean,
And I have not had that conversation with my children, but they understand that that is a threat, and that's what the whole world community is trying to avoid.
Right.
And
and the one thing that you don't want your child to learn about this stuff is they're getting told to get under their desk. We're doing a nuclear drill. Like that's how you
right,
don't want your child finding out about this
figuring
stuff.
it out that way,
Right.
right?
I mean,
Like,
I
we
remember.
know that it's unlikely, but that that's what the whole world community is trying to keep from happening. And they understand that's the environment that we're living in right now.
Yeah, I remember PS16 in Albany. We had a bomb shelter in the basement. We would go down there. And yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah,
well, they have active shooter drills in their class. I mean,
right. That's true.
They have drills about what they would do if there was a shooter in their school. And they do it like twice a year.
Yeah, we have tornado drills, we have active shooter drills, but I mean, a nuclear drill has not been necessary since 1992.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And
well, and then the one other interesting thing about it is, seeing how inept the Russian forces have been, you have to think their nuclear thing is going to be comparable, because that's like an order of magnitude more difficult.
Yeah.
Right.
But I wouldn't bet money on it.
No.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely been, I mean, you wonder, how much is too much to tell them, but at the same time, I don't want them hearing it from somebody else. And like you said, I don't want them having to crawl under their desk to be how they find out that weapons like that exist.
It's fascinating that that's the conversation that kids are having at school, not the birds and the bees or any of the other things.
You can't have that conversation. Yeah, you can't have that conversation, or you're going to go to jail.
Well,
my parents only watch Fox, so.
Well, it's been my fear that I'm going to have the school calling me saying, why are your kids talking about like the war in Ukraine? Like, because like they're sharing stuff with other kids that, and that's a conversation you have to have with them too, is like, other kids in your class might not know anything about this. And like,
right.
That's okay. Yeah.
My sister's kids are, had a reasonable education, but they live in Texas. And so, there's conversation. I mean, first of all, they did the typical Jewish kid thing of, there's no Santa Claus. Are you guys idiots? So that didn't go over well. But then talking about, just bodily functions.
Yeah. Well, that's one thing, my son actually last week was asking some like, transgender type questions. Like, is it possible for somebody to switch from a boy to a girl? Like, I'm not really sure where it came from, but that was an easy conversation to have with them. I mean, I have enough transgender people in my life that it's not, and it's not even just through political activism. I mean, people that I've known for years and years and grew up with have transitioned. So like, that was not a difficult thing for me. And I just have, I have friends and family from, the GSM community who are very close to us. So, they've grown up without any kind of, qualms about that. My sister and her wife got married and they were both in the wedding this past September.
There you go.
I mean, going to, transgender is like a little bit of a step of explaining beyond that. But, it wasn't a hard conversation to have. And he understood.
Yep.
So.
Do we want to briefly touch on Elon and Twitter?
Yeah, Elon Musk has. Yeah, we'll briefly touch on this. Elon Musk has been making noise about acquiring Twitter. He's been a frequent critic of Twitter, especially since they banned Donald Trump, and he wants to attack it on free speech grounds. But he bought a 9% stake in the company, and then he is offered $54 billion to buy the remaining shares of Twitter in order to take it to a private company.
Yeah.
Now, I would say if it's taken as a private company, he can do whatever the hell he wants to with it. If he wants to turn it into 8chan, Have fun with that. I'm gonna get rid of my Twitter because I'm not gonna be in that cesspool though.
Well, you know what? It's
It's
funny.
already that cesspool, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
Go ahead, John.
You're talking about that. The really edgy thing I've been saying this week is that, I hear all these people complaining about being censored, but I'm like, did Stormfront say they wouldn't publish you? Because I think you could go there and, those white supremacists would be pretty happy for your content. So you're not being censored. The thing about it is, the thing that makes these things valuable is the curated audience.
Yeah.
And if you take that away, and it's nice because, like, when I mentioned the whole Stormfront thing, and they're like, well, I don't want to publish my stuff there. I'm like, why don't you want to publish your stuff there? Because people there say crazy shit. Hey, pot, this is kettle. You're black.
I tell you what, when I heard the news, and a lot of people in my circle, especially politically, were really celebrating it and free speech grounds. And I have a Twitter, but I stay off it because it's already just a toxic cesspool that I don't want to deal with. The discourse there is low, knuckle dragging level, right? So I already don't do it, but I'm thinking, what are you going to do? Add Trump back? And that's one of the things that I've really had to struggle with, especially with, my libertarian philosophy, through this pandemic and seeing some of the misinformation that has flat out killed people. Yeah. And thinking to myself, I don't know where I draw the lines on this stuff anymore. I don't know that, people, should just have a platform to say whatever they want to say when it's harmful. And I don't really have the answer for that myself right now, but I've seen a lot of this, conspiracy rhetoric, coming especially out of the Twitter crowd, which is why I don't go there. I'm not sure that, opening up to more of this toxic crap in society is a good thing.
It does point to, because you can have a decent experience on Twitter. It just, you have to be hyper vigilant about who you add and what you're searching for on Twitter, because Twitter will start putting crap in your space. And that sucks.
That's one of the really interesting things about it, is that the blame for a lot of what's broken social media is social media making themselves more popular by suggesting, oh, you might be interested in this, and showing you stuff that really you wouldn't have found any otherwise. But they want to bring you in, and they're like, oh, you know what? I'm going to show Jen this. It'll really piss her off. She'll feel like she has to write a comment afterwards. And
I've gotten really good at not writing comments, because I just, but one of the things that I did, within the past month, is I just went through and blocked everybody who tempted me, to engage, that I didn't want to engage with that kind of content anymore on all of my platforms. I did it on Twitter too, even though I'm not there very often, because, it's just not worth it to me.
It is very cathartic.
I'm not working on projects where I have to listen to that anymore.
I did it when I got off the LNC, and got off of, I've been off of the state board for a year now. This is my year anniversary of being off state chair, and
give you a token.
1 year survivor.
I interviewed with PBS NewsHour about my grandmother dying of COVID, and I had political colleagues laugh reacting at it. It just you just can't make this stuff up. And they are really the people who believe that the vaccine doesn't help, and masks are going to kill you. You're not a peak freedom fighter because you won't wear a mask into a grocery store. I'm sorry. The people in Ukraine are peak freedom fighters.
Yeah,
right.
And I see masks in the Ukraine too on a lot of those guys. So I don't know. I really had mixed feelings about the Elon Musk stuff, going back to the reason for this, because I was you really want them to be more free to be dirtbags? That is what you're going to spend 50 however billion on? It's you can do you, it's your money. But I just don't think he's going to do it. I think it was just a ploy to raise the stock price, and then he's going to be same thing.
Yeah, he's raising the stock price, and then he's going to sell his 9% and make a profit off it. So,
right.
Whenever people tell me that they got banned off of Twitter, it's well, what did you say? And 99% of the time, they said something just incredibly dumb and deserve.
really
putting
horrible people on Twitter who haven't been banned. So it tells
Yeah.
you they must be like, over the top.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like, yeah, and there are examples. I mean, I think social media has become too reliant on algorithms to do the work, and we have good people get caught up in Facebook. I know that. I've said some dumb things on Facebook and got a
Yeah.
24-hour ban or whatever. But uh,
Right. I forgot you did get banned.
oh yeah, I've had a couple of stints in Facebook jail.
I have never been
Stay away
banned.
from Jeffrey Dahmer.
I haven't either. I've never been in Facebook jail. I have had issues with running like political ads where they just
Political ads are
ignored me.
I
And
get
it was like for completely normal stuff.
Yeah.
I sometimes get in trouble for sending too many messages too quickly.
Yeah.
To promote things, but I mean I understand that.
Yeah. Anyway, Jen, tell us how people can find out about the Keystone Party. You have a website or?
Yeah, the website is keystone.party. So www.keystone.party. We should have donation links up very soon because we have our bank accounts and our PayPal and such up and going. PayPal was a little bit of a bear to set up because we had to give them all of our like supporting IRS documents and stuff to prove we were legit. But we also have a Facebook. We have a Twitter. I believe we even have like a TikTok and Instagram. Like our social media team is, pretty on it. If you go to, Jenn Moore or Jennifer Moore, Keystone Party Chair, you can find me there directly if you want to send me a message and ask me anything. I'll be happy to talk to you about it. We're really ramping up a lot of this because, like I said, it was April 4th and now it's April 17th. So everything is very, very new. But, we are getting out there. And of course, naturally, there have been some other Twitter things that have popped up. There's a fake Keystone Party, I believe. There's a Keystone Mises, a Keystone Cathedral. None of that is any of us. They're arguing with each other. I blocked them all so I don't have to look at it. I think that most of the people in our actual party did because you know what? That's the discourse that we left behind.
Yeah.
And we just really don't care to be a part of it. So, they can do whatever they're doing. Like we're aware of you and like we know you exist, but you don't matter. Like that's my message. So but if you see stuff that, looks like it's weird and, infighting out there, you may just be on the wrong Twitter feed and you need to look for the official one, I guess is the message I'm trying to get across here.
That's good to know.
Plenty of indicators out there. Look for the genuine article. And
right.
If you do have TikTok, you better be doing the next viral TikTok challenge. I'm just saying.
What's the viral TikTok
it
challenge?
changes like every day. There's always viral TikToks that people are doing. Ask Christine. She knows.
She's good at that. She's I mean, I'm a millennial. I'm too old for TikTok.
It's funny.
I'm on TikTok. I'm a Gen Xer.
All right. Well,
my life is almost over.
You have a young soul, Dave.
Dan, tell us about the
he was drinking a tower of Yingling.
Oh yeah.
Let's see. People for Liberty's got a couple exciting things coming up next weekend. Holly Ward, our director of operations, will be speaking at the Libertarian Party of Massachusetts convention. I will be there, but in no official capacity. And then we are getting very close to the mysterious launch of Home for Liberty. You've heard about it. The rumors are out there. The rumors will all be dispelled within the next 17 days.
Nice. Excellent.
You guys are doing good work, Dan.
Thanks, Jen.
Absolutely. And our final ad for the night, my buddy Travis Rednick down in Beckley, West Virginia, does the Deep End Antiques. If you like military surplus, if you like gemstones, if you like, Dan.
Oh, also, May 1st is the National Liberty Day of Service. peopleforliberty.org/NLDOS. I don't know how I could possibly have forgotten that. What's really cool about it this time, and I'm going to push it to you, Jen, is if your candidates create an event, everybody who signs up for their event through us, the candidate gets emailed about it. Hey, so-and-so signed up for it. So essentially,
Oh, that's cool.
you put up an event and everybody who signs up for it, and we have a generous donor. We are going to make a very big public publicity push next weekend for the National Liberty Day of Service. So go to NLDOS, peopleforliberty.org/NLDOS. You'll see this giant map there with all these events happening. Make sure your event is on there. So people, when this advertisement comes out over television and radio and all that other stuff, they will come and sign up for your event, and you will get volunteers from it.
Excellent. That's great to hear, Dan. Going back to your antiques there, first of all, I want to know if they have any watches. But second of all, my husband's new thing is to wire the whole house to have a house phone. And I need like an old rotary dial phone. So
I'm sure they have all kinds of stuff there. Yeah.
If he has anything other than the military surplus and he can get me a rotary phone or an antique watch, I'm all in.
Yeah, absolutely. He actually this weekend posted online saying that he had got a prehistoric bison jaw. Posted a picture of it on.
My son would love that.
Yeah. So if you're into fossils and it's really your standard antique store, but there's so much more with military surplus gems and things like that. So if you ever find yourself I-64, I-68, the junction there in Beckley, West Virginia, it's just a couple blocks from there. But go visit them on the Deep End Antiques on Facebook, and he'll be much appreciative.
So I'm going to come down to West Virginia. I'm going to go and buy antiques from your friend, and then your wife's going to teach me how to repair watches.
There you go. That's the way to do it.
Right.
There's a final warning from Waldenberger saying, "Don't look at my TikTok." Actually, you know what? For that, John, I'm going to give you another reface soon. Just expect that.
I like the refaces. I think they're hilarious. The one today was exceptional.
I know. See, there are people that love this stuff, John.
Yeah, John, you're just wrong. You're wrong.
In fact, here's a little sneak peek.
Outstanding.
But anyway, thanks everyone for joining us on the Political Deep Dive this week. Thanks, Jen. Thanks, Dan. We'll talk to everyone next week. I don't have a guest just yet, but we'll find somebody.
All right. Say goodnight, Gracie.
Yeah. Good night, Gracie.
My dog's name is Grace. She's right here.
All right.
Good night, Grace.
Take care, everybody. Thanks for watching.
Good night.